On Reddit, someone shared a story about a landlord who was corrupt, abusive, and seemingly untouchable. For years, tenants suffered under his thumb, but one tenant decided enough was enough, and with one simple, brilliant move, he brought the entire operation crashing down. I've been renting from this guy for about 3 years now, and in those 3 years, I've learned that he's one of the worst landlords you could possibly encounter. He doesn't care about maintenance, he doesn't care about his tenants, and he definitely doesn't care about the law. The property I live on is shared with several other rental units. It's old, it's falling apart, and the landlord has zero interest in fixing anything. But here's the thing that really set me off. He had this neighbor, let's call him Derek. Derek lived next to the property and absolutely hated us. He was always complaining, always causing problems, always making our lives miserable. And our landlord, instead of handling the situation like a normal person, he actually sided with Derek. He'd take Derek's complaints seriously, but he'd ignore ours. He'd make changes to accommodate Derek, but couldn't be bothered to fix actual problems on the property. It was infuriating. One day, I was doing some work on my car in the driveway when Derek came storming over, screaming at me. He was losing his mind over nothing, and when I tried to talk to the landlord about it, he basically told me to deal with it. That's when something clicked in my head. I decided right then that I was going to destroy this guy's life. Not violently, not illegally, but systematically, strategically, completely. I spent weeks researching the property, and that's when I discovered something interesting. The entire property relied on a single water pump system. One pump supplied water to every unit on the property. It was old, it was fragile, and it was the critical infrastructure holding everything together. I also discovered that the landlord had never, and I mean never, updated the property records. The electrical system was outdated. The plumbing was a disaster, and most importantly, he'd been cutting corners on maintenance for years, which violated dozens of local housing codes. But the water pump, that was the key. I waited for the right moment, and then one night, I did something simple. I disabled that water pump. Not permanently, not in a way that would destroy it, but in a way that would make it look like it had failed naturally due to age and lack of maintenance. The next morning, every unit on the property woke up with no water. The landlord had to call someone to fix it. The repair guy took one look at the pump and immediately told him the same thing. This pump is ancient. It's been neglected for years, and it's going to need to be replaced entirely. That's thousands of dollars. But here's where it gets good. While the pump was being fixed, I made some calls. I called the local housing authority. I reported the deplorable conditions of the property. I filed complaints about maintenance violations. I documented everything. I also made sure Derek found out about all of this. I wanted him to know that his precious neighbor, the landlord, was being investigated. And I called the local environmental agency and reported that the property had been operating with an outdated water system that violated current codes, which it had. I didn't lie. Everything I reported was true. Within days, the housing authority showed up for an inspection. They found violations everywhere. Outdated electrical work, plumbing that didn't meet code, maintenance issues that hadn't been addressed in years. They issued fines, multiple fines, thousands of dollars in fines. Then the environmental agency came through and told him the water system needed to be completely replaced. Not just repaired, but replaced. That's tens of thousands of dollars. The tenants who lived on the property started getting notices about the violations. Some of them decided they didn't want to live somewhere that wasn't up to code. They started moving out. One by one, the units became vacant. Then Derek's complaints about the property actually started to matter because now the authorities were involved. The landlord couldn't ignore them anymore. He had to make repairs, had to upgrade systems, had to bring everything up to code. And the cost? It was astronomical. The landlord tried to raise the rent to cover the expenses, but with half the units vacant and a reputation now tarnished by housing violations, nobody new wanted to move in. He was losing money fast. One day, he came to my unit to inspect something. He was stressed, angry, clearly falling apart. I answered the door calmly and he asked me if I knew anything about the pump failure or the complaints to the housing authority. I looked him straight in the eye and lied. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. I was sympathetic. I said it was a shame about all these violations, but at least now the property would be up to code. I smiled, and I closed the door. Within 6 months, he sold the property. He couldn't afford the repairs, couldn't fill the units, and couldn't handle the stress. The new owners were actually decent landlords who fixed everything properly. But the best part? Derek lost his favourite villain to complain about. The property became livable. And the old landlord? Last I heard, he moved in with his daughter because he couldn't afford a place of his own anymore. I didn't break any laws. I didn't do anything illegal or violent. I simply exposed the truth about what was already happening on that property and let the system do the rest. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about letting them destroy themselves with their own negligence. If you're watching this and you're dealing with a corrupt landlord or someone taking advantage of you, document everything, report violations, use the system. Sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon you have. Stay smart. And thanks for listening. If this story blew your mind, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. And drop a comment below. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed?